Shalom, my name is Joseph Shulam, and I'm continuing teaching 2 Samuel. We arrived to chapter 17, and from the time of the story of Bathsheba and the death of her first son, God is not in the picture. There's all big mess happening in David's house with his son Absalom. And now Absalom has amassed an army and he has taken Jerusalem, and David has run away from Jerusalem. He's down into the Judean desert and is about to cross the Jordan River and go to Rabat Ammon, to today's city of Amman, the capital of the state of Jordan. And I said earlier, God is not in the picture. From about chapter 13 of 2 Samuel, God is not in the picture. Nobody's talking about God. Nobody's mentioning God. Not David, not Absalom, not anybody of the generals, Joab and all the men and all the advisors. God is not in the picture. And there is total big balagan, big mess happening there. David, with few men, is running away from Jerusalem. He has established an intelligence network in Absalom's court, among Absalom's closest advisors. And he's got Zadok the priest and the other priest and a lady and the children of the priest, everybody involved. They're very close to Absalom, and at the same time they are David's men inside Absalom's court. It's very important for us to understand this. I think it's a revelation of David's character. Literally a revelation of David's character. So we are in chapter 17, and I'm going to read from the beginning of chapter 17. And Achitophel said to Absalom, Achitophel used to be David's top advisor, and he switched camps. He joined with Absalom. And he's advising now Absalom. So Achitophel the Gilonite is speaking to Absalom. Let me pick 12,000 men and set out tonight in pursuit of David. I will come upon him when he is weary and disheartened, and I will throw him into a panic. And when all the troops with him flee, I will kill the king alone. What a plan Achitophel had. And I will bring back all the people to you. When all have come back, except the men you are after, all the people will be at peace. When we get rid of David, the nation will reunite and everybody will be at peace. The advice pleased Absalom and all the elders of Israel. But Absalom said, summon Hushai the Archite as well, so we can hear what he has to say. Absalom is not satisfied with the advice of one of the advisors. He wants a second opinion on this issue. So he invites Hushai the Archite to give advice. Was also one of the great advisors of David, and he switched sides supposedly and joined Absalom and his forces, but he's actually still David's men. David was a genius, a military genius. He knew about intelligence, he knew about the enemy, he knew how to assess realistically what's going on. So Absalom invites Hushai the Archite as well, so we can hear what he has to say. Hushai comes to Absalom, and Absalom said to him, "This is what Achitophel has advised. Shall we follow his advice? If not, what do you say?" So Hushai said to Absalom, "This time the advice of Achitophel has given you is not good. You know," Hushai continued, "that your father and his men are courageous fighters, and they are desperate as a bear in the wild, robbed of her whelps, or her puppies actually should be. Your father is an experienced soldier. He will not spend the night with the troops. Even now he must be hiding in one of the pits or in some other place. And if any of them fall at the first attack, whoever hears of it will say, 'A disaster has struck the troops that follow Absalom.' And even if he is a brave man with the heart of a lion, he will be shaken. For all Israel knows that your father and the soldiers with him are courageous fighters. So I advise that all Israel from Dan to Beersheba, as numerous as the sand of the sea, be called up to join you, and you yourself march into battle. When we come upon him," upon David that is, "in whatever place he may be, we'll descend on him as thick as the dew falling on the ground, and no one will survive, neither he nor any of the men with him. And if he withdraws into a city, all Israel will bring ropes to the city and drag with stones as far as the riverbed, until not even one pebble of it will be left." Absalom and all Israel agreed with the advice of Hushai the Archite. Was better than that of Achitophel. The Lord has decreed that Achitophel's sound advice be nullified, in order that the Lord might bring ruin upon Absalom. That's a editorial comment into the story, saying that God had a hand in the fact that Absalom accepted Hushai the Archite's advice and rejected Achitophel's advice. Very important. Then Hushai told the priest Tzadok and Neviatar, who were again David's secret men in Jerusalem, "This is what Achitophel advised Absalom and the elders of Israel. This is what I advised. Now send at once and tell David, do not spend the night at the fords of the wilderness, but cross over at once. Otherwise the king and all the troops with him will be annihilated." The king means David. Jonathan and Ahimaaz were staying at En Rogel, and a slave girl would go and bring them word that they in turn would go and inform King David, for they themselves dare not be seen entering the city. En Rogel is close to where the pool of Siloam is, at the southern eastern tip of the city of David. It's another spring. There is the spring of the Gihon that comes from under the city of Jerusalem, and then there's En Rogel, which is less than a mile away, another spring of water that watered the royal gardens during the days of Solomon and maybe the days of David too. But a boy saw them and informed Absalom. They left at once and came to the house of a man in Bahurim who had a well in his courtyard. They go down into it, and the wife took a cloth, spread it over the mouth of the well, and scattered groats on top of it so that nothing would be noticed. When Absalom's servants came to the woman at the house and asked her, "Where is Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" The women told them they had crossed a bit beyond the water, in other words, the Jordan River. They searched but found nothing, and they returned to Jerusalem. After they were gone, Ahimaaz and Jonathan came up out of the well, went and informed King David. They said to David, "Go and cross the water, that means the Jordan, quickly, and Ahithophel has advised us thus and thus concerning you." David and all the troops with him promptly crossed the Jordan, and by daybreak not one was left had not crossed the Jordan. When Ahithophel saw that his advice had not been followed, he saddled his donkey and went home in his native town. To his native town, he set his affairs in order, and then he hanged himself. He was buried in his ancestral tomb. David had reached Mahanaim when Absalom and all the men of Israel with him crossed the Jordan. Mahanaim, remember, it's an old place from the days of the Exodus from Egypt. Yeah, and from the story of Abraham as well. Jacob gave the name Mahanaim when he split on his return from Aram, from his uncle Laban's servitude there for 21 years. He split his camp in two because he had to meet his brother Esau. So he named Mahanaim on the other side of the Jordan before he crossed the Jordan. So David and his men reached Mahanaim when Absalom and all his Israel with him crossed the Jordan. Absalom had appointed Amasa army commander in place of Joab. Amasa was the son of a man named Itra, the Israelite, who had married Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, the sister of Joab's mother, Sruya. That's an interesting text within itself. I'll get back to it. The Israelites and Absalom encamped in the district of Gilad. Gilad is that place that had wonderful herbs and medical grasses and natural medical plants, because you find the song that Christians sing, "There is no balm in Gilead that can cure the sin-sick heart." So that's Gilead. So the Absalom and his men encamped in Gilead. When David reached Mahanaim, Shobi, son of Nahash, from Rabat Ammon, in other words, Ammonite, Machir, the son of Amiel from Lodavar, and Barzillai the Gileadite from Roglim, presented couches, basins, earthware, all wheat, barley, flour, part grain, beans, lentils, parched grain, honey, curds, a flock and cheese from the herd for David and the troops with him to eat. For they knew that the troops must grow hungry and faint and thirsty in the wilderness. That's the end of chapter 17, but I'm continuing. David mustered the troops who were with him and set over the captain of thousands and captain of hundreds. David sent out the troops 1/3 under the command of Joab, 1/3 under the command of Joab's brother Abishai, son of Tzruya, and 1/3 under the command of Ittai the Gittite. And David said to the troops, "I myself will march out with you." Now, let me stop here. What do we have here? We have one family, two brothers, Joab and Abishai, the sons of Tzruya, and we have a Philistine, Ittai the Gittite, Ittai that came from the city of Gat, the capital of the Philistines in the low hill country, near the coastal plain, not far from Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Gaza, Gat. So this Ittai was one of the Philistines that joined David when he was for 7 years hiding from King Saul in Ziklag, near Gath. The troops replied, "No, for if some one of us flee, the rest will not be concerned about us. Even if half of us should die, the others will not be concerned about us. But you are worth 10,000 of us. Therefore, it is better for you to support us from the town." And the king said to them, "I will do whatever you think is best." Again, David, I'll get back to this and talk about this issue. So the king stood beside the gate, and all the troops marched out of their hundreds and thousands. And the king gave order to Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, "Deal gently with my boy Absalom, for my sake." All the troops heard the king give the order about Absalom to all the officers. Let me stop here in verse 6 of chapter 18. Go back to chapter 17. So what do we have here? We have a mutiny of David's now eldest son, the heir to the throne, who is impatient, vain. We already know that he was vain from chapter 15. He had his long hair, he dressed nice, he approached the people, he was a politician, smooth guy, talking to the people, offering them help for free, and just doing everything that's right from a human point of view. And maligning his father, speaking against his father and how his father is old and not capable to lead anymore, and not capable to judge right, and too harsh with the people. And if I was the judge, I would take care of you, I will bless you, I will do justice by you. Political language, but he was a vain person. We learned that earlier. But not an idiot. He was a capable person. And he manages over 7 years to amass an army with chariots, with soldiers, with captains, and essentially marches on Jerusalem. David runs away from Jerusalem with 10,000 men faithful to him, and they run away and lament of what's going on. As David had asked Absalom to come down from the Golan Heights, from Geshur, from his grandfather Talmai. Remember, David's wife, Maachah, was the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. In other words, she was not an Israelite woman. We always think of Solomon bringing all these foreign women and foreign men and advisors to advise him. No, David also made peace with Talmai way up north on the footsteps of Mount Hermon by the Caesarea of Philippi. And in order to keep the peace, he knew that he could not minister with what he has, such far territories. And the wise thing to do is make peace with them and close the peace by marrying the daughter of Talmai, and she was the mother of Absalom and of Tamar, that was raped by Amnon. So David smartly made this pact. So after Absalom had to run away to the north, he ran to his grandfather and was there a total of 4 years, until David started missing his son and said, "Come home, boy, I'll take care of you." He didn't realize that the enmity, the envy, and the desire to rule was so deep in Absalom's heart. And Absalom, on the other hand, looked at his father, getting old, not functioning right, grieving over his situation, and essentially said, I'll take my father's place. I'm not going to wait for him to die. I'll just take over. And he amassed the army with chariots and everything, and marched on Jerusalem. David ran. Instead of fighting against his son, he ran away to the deserts and then had to cross the Jordan River. But he installed in Jerusalem this kind of spy ring of top advisors and people that were right next to Absalom. The priests that had the Ark of the Covenant that would give Absalom needed that. They would give them the carte blanche from the spiritual point of view to be the ruler. And Hushai the Archite, which was one of David's top advisors, that also, like Ahithophel, pretended to turn sides and be on Absalom's side. And the advice that Hushai gave Absalom was good advice, actually. But it was an advice that was designed to delay that whole campaign, and said, you can't do that by yourself. You got to unite all of Israel behind you. If you want to be king, you can't just go and fight your father and kill your father and take over. You have to have the political backing, at least the political backing and the military backing of all the tribes of Israel. So that would delay Absalom's plan to go and kill David and take over the kingdom. So Hushai the Archite gives that advice to Absalom, and Absalom understands that this is politically much wiser than Ahithophel's plan of a quick commando action to go and kill King David. It delays the situation, and Absalom amasses a vast army from all of Israel to come on his side, and then he starts chasing David on the other side of the Jordan. And David is no dummy. He's a great military leader. He's a strategist, and he divides his forces into three groups with three different leaders. Joab is one of them. His brother was the brother of Joab, the son of Tzeruiah, was the second group, and the third group was in the hands of Ittai the Gittite, the Philistine leader that joined David. Don't know if he converted to the faith of Israel or not, but he joined David. So, what can we learn from this? I'll tell you what we can learn from this. We can learn from this that great men of God, like King David, sometimes make mistakes. And sometimes their offspring, like Absalom, don't turn out so good. And in fact, none of the great leaders of the Bible, their children turned out good. Not Moses. We know nothing much about his children. And then not Eli the priest, and not Samuel's children, and not David's children also, and not all of Abraham's children. Ishmael, and not all of Isaac's children, Esau, and not all of Jacob's children, Levi and Simeon. So, yep, the old 1960s song, "Woe, it's me, there's a scandal in my family," is a part of the biblical narrative. We have a lot to learn from that. God bless you all, and keep reading the Bible. There's wonderful lessons to be learned there about everything, from home life and family life, and even from business and strategy. God bless you all.